Alright guys, here we are, week 5, Studio 117 Distance Learning. This week we're going to go over some standards for professional practice as laid out by the American Institute of Graphic Artists. Let's dig in. The assignment itself is basically you're going to review a website on the American Institute of Graphic Artists webpage, and it lists the standards for professional practice. It's basically the code of ethics that creative professionals live and die by. I'm going to show you an example of kind of how you need to approach the assignment, which is a short essay. We will look at that down here in a minute. Okay, so here's what we've got in the actual assignment itself. Okay, it is going to be in Google Classroom, and it looks something like this. All right, so it's got the intro. It says that you can locate the website by looking right here, searching for this, or you can use this link. All right, the link is going to take you straight to the AIGA website, straight to the standards for professional practice. All right, I want you to read it. This is what it looks like right here. Okay, I want you to read this. It's really not that much stuff. You have to scroll down a ways, but it's short. Okay, it's not that much reading. I want you to read over these. There's actually 28 of these standards. They're broken up into sections. Like section 1 is all about the designer's responsibility to clients. So it's got 4 different standards about dealing with clients. Designer's responsibility to other designers. It's got, I don't know, 6 right there. Right? Then it talks about fees. It talks about publicity, self-promotion, etc. Authorship, and then the designer's responsibility to the public, designer's responsibility to society and the environment, and that's pretty much it. All right, so I want you to read over these, all 28 of them, and then I want you to pick 5 of them. It says it right here in the assignment that you're going to choose 5 of these standards for professional practice, and you're going to make sure you include the name of the standard that you'll see in bold at the beginning of each section, as well as the number that correlates to the standard. In this example, like publicity, it would be, that's the header, is about publicity, and if you're going to do one or the other of these, specify which one it is. Now, what I want you to write about in the this assignment is going to be 2 parts. In the first part, it's going to be worth 50 points. Let me do this right here. This will make it larger. So what I want you to write about in part 1 is you're going to choose 5 of the 28 standards. Okay, whichever ones you feel are going to apply to you the most. Make sure you include the name of the standard in bold, the section number. In this video, I'm demonstrating for you how this needs to look. So what you're going to write about is you're going to summarize your thoughts and opinions. Right here. Thoughts and opinions. They belong to you and you only. They don't exist on the internet. They're not on the AIGA website, on their web page for professional standards. These are your thoughts and your opinions regarding how each of these 5 standards specifically apply to you as a student designer and how it relates to the work you've performed in your design classes thus far. I want you guys to keep in mind right here, it says that in addition to us really doing the traditional graphic design class, Studio 117 does function as a school-based business. We do printing and design for businesses, wherever around the country, locally, etc. So Feel free to cite some examples related to that aspect of what Studio 117 does if you feel so inclined. Now, at the end of part 1, I got a nice little disclaimer here. It says, please note, do not, I repeat, do not simply try to copy and paste these standards from the website into a Google Doc and turn it in. You'll receive no credit for this approach. You are tasked with writing your thoughts and opinions and insights on how each standard applies to your experience directly. Don't plagiarize. All right? So the way that might look is if you go through these standards, and one that I chose to cite an example here to show you how I would approach writing these is about authorship. All right? Obviously, I'm not a student in my class. I'm the teacher, so I chose to pull an example of my real-world experience and relate it to this standard right here, authorship 5.2, that says, basically, when you're not the sole author of a design, it is incumbent upon the professional designer to clearly identify his or her specific responsibilities. It says if you use examples in a portfolio without your clear identification, it's kind of no-go. So here's what happened to me. Let me go back to this. Many years ago, I got into a situation with an ad agency where I had kind of violated this standard. All right. Now, what copy and paste looks like is if I just copy this standard right here, this block authorship and the 2 standards on it, and I paste it into my Word file or into my Google Doc, that's not writing. That has nothing to do with me. It's not my thoughts, not my opinions. I don't want any of you to regurgitate these standards. I know these standards backwards and forwards, and I don't need you to copy them and tell me about them again. I don't want a summary of the standards. I want you to tell me how they apply to your experience in the class, your experience as a designer, your experience working with clients, etc. All right. So this standard right here, this was my answer. If I was writing this essay, this would be one of my 5 answers on this part. All right. So those of you that are concerned about having to write 500 words, I'm going to copy this. Whenever I copy and paste my answer here about authorship standard 5.2 and I paste it into Microsoft Word, it tells me right there that one response is 386 words. So obviously I've got spell check here popping up, so there's errors. Make sure you fix those. All right. And the way that this answer is crafted is I don't regurgitate that standard at all. All right, I might borrow just a few pieces of a few words or whatever, but it basically says I got a header on it, professional standard number 1, authorship standard 5.2. I had that in bold. And I say that it mentions giving credit to and clearly identifying the specific individuals that worked on a project for which the designer might have been a collaborator on. It doesn't say that anywhere in this standard at all, right? It might use a few of those words, but that's not how it's worded. So when it says, when you're not the sole author, right, you have to, if you're going to publicly display it or use it in a portfolio, you have to give clear identification of precise areas of authorship. That's how the standard words it. But what I did here is I really rambled on, which I know you guys know that I'm capable of doing really well. So, you guys need to elaborate on what it is that you're talking about, all right? For your example, reflect on certain projects that you might have worked on. Feel free to pause this video right here and read this, all right? You can see how I'm kind of layering up the experience that I had, where basically what happened was I got placed through a creative talent agency at an agency named Red Urban that was based out of Amsterdam. They had a remote office in Dallas. I worked there on some big name client jobs as an art director, which is what I was placed as far as my title. But when I got there, all I was really doing was production art, changing, making revisions and stuff. So I figured I would get some screenshots of that stuff and try to put it in my portfolio because it was projects I'd worked on at a big agency. So I thought it might help me gain a leg up in a very competitive industry. Unfortunately, months later, I updated my portfolio with some of those pieces, and it got passed back over to the same ad agency, but from a different creative talent agency that was representing me. I was working for like 5 different talent agencies. So it was very embarrassing because I kind of got busted for trying to claim somebody else's work as art direction, quote unquote, and design when it was actually really just production art. So the agency had to ask me to give proper credit to individuals if I was going to use it. So, it was embarrassing. And so, needless to say, I never did any more freelance work through that talent agency or for the agency Red Urban ever again. So, the lesson learned was full disclosure and honesty is always the best policy. So, that one answer, 387 words. Feel free to be long-winded and to elaborate. All right. Now, back over to the assignment, part 2. Please share your thoughts and opinions about the experience in this class so far this year. Please share 5 pros and or cons of what you enjoy about the class, plus what you currently do not like about the class. I need you to share your thoughts on me as a teacher and offer suggestions about how we can make the class better for you. Please be straightforward and brutally honest. All right, the more you write about, the better your grade's going to be. Don't worry about hurting my feelings, of course. The only way that I can better myself and better the process of trying to design a class is if you guys give me some good evaluation and critique, even if it stings a little bit. So I'm the only one that's going to read this stuff. Don't hold back. You got to number your answers 1 through 5 accordingly, and you must provide 5 pros and or cons to receive full credit for part 2. So you got to have 5 standards in part 1. You got to have 5 points, pros, cons, whatever you want to call them, in part 2, and that'll get you 100. Another disclaimer about part 2. Please do not use this as a platform for behaviors that one would consider to be attacking, rude, complaining, whining, etc. I really don't want to hear any of that. I need to hear stuff that is constructive feedback and positive. All right. Even if you're talking about something that you don't like, you can talk about why you don't like it, but don't just sit there and just talk about that you don't like it because you don't like it. I need reasons. I need a foundation and a solid explanation. So your deliverables, you'll receive a major project test grade weighted at 40% for this essay. Please include your name and block number and a title. Probably, I don't know, AIGA Standards for Professional Practice, something like that, as like a title at the top of the Google Doc. And if you can, name it last name underscore first initial underscore AIGA. Our objective, it's right here. You're basically doing what we just said. So you guys are going to create your own Google Doc. A couple people thought last week that we had to actually, that there was one provided, and there's not. So how do you make a Google Doc? It's real simple. You do a new Google page. And if you're logged in, which you should be, you can click on this little button right here. It takes you to your apps within Google. There's Classroom, which you've all used to get to where you're at now. There's Docs right next to it. So when you create this new document, boom, make a new one, make a header, do all that stuff, name, block, etc. There's one of my first answers right there. I'm not sure where the actual word count is here, but it's probably under View or Edit or something like that. So maybe Format, Tells me right there what my word count is. 500 words. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Remind or send me a message here. And that's it. Hope all's well. You guys stay safe. I'll see you next time around.